Okay, guys, we're going to continue on with day 2 of our equation of a circle notes. And first of all, before we get started on today's lesson, let's just recall that we derived the center radius form of the equation of a circle basically from the Pythagorean theorem. And we determined that that form looked like this: x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. Okay, remember h comma k is the center of our circle, and r is the radius. That's the length of the radius. And remember the way that we derived this, the r was basically the hypotenuse of the right triangle when we used Pythagorean theorem. Okay, well today we're going to talk about how to go from general form of the equation of a circle to the center radius form of the equation of a circle. Because if we look at what's given to us here in this intro example part 1, I've got x squared plus 2x plus 1 plus y squared plus 4x plus 4 equals 121. Well, that doesn't quite look like what we have up here. It's not in that form at all. Okay, so this is in what we call general form slightly. They've moved the 121 to the other side already for us. But what we need to do is we need to figure out how we can write this in center radius form. And the way we have to go about doing that is by factoring both of these sets of terms here. We need to factor this set over here, and then we need to factor this set over here. That will help us find out where the center of the circle is, and in a minute we'll talk about the radius. Remember, this number should be our radius squared if these two terms look more like this up here, okay? So let's make these two terms look more like these up here, or these two sets of terms look more like that up above. All right, so we're going to do that by factoring. Now, I've got a quadratic. I got x squared plus 2x plus 1. We've worked a lot of problems this year where we've infused factoring to solve. And remember, in those cases, we usually set it equal to 0 and then factor it and find out what the possible values of x are. Well, we're still going to use the same principle to factor. Remember, the standard form of a quadratic is ax squared plus bx plus c. And when we factor it, we need to find the factors of our c term that add up to our b term. All right? So if I look at this quadratic here, x squared plus 2x plus 1. Granted, we find the factors of the c term that add up to our b term, assuming that our a term is 1. So in this case, our a term is 1. Okay? Our b term is 2. And our c term is 1. So we need to find the factors of 1 that add up to 2. Well, the only two factors I can think of 1 that add up to 2 are going to be 1 and 1. Okay, guys? So this first set of terms is going to factor like this: x plus 1 times x plus 1. Okay? Now realize that's actually these two terms squared. It's the same as x plus 1 squared. So I can rewrite x plus 1 times x plus 1 as x plus 1 squared. Okay, now let's look at that second set of terms over there, the ones beginning with y squared. So I've got y squared plus 4y plus 4. Okay, now again, I'm going to find the factors of my c term that add up to my b term. All right, if I look at this 4 here, well, I could start with a 1 and a 4. The only problem is 1 times 4 does equal 4, but 1 plus 4 is 5, so that's not going to work. So let's go on. Let's go on to 2. Let's try 2 and 2. I know that 2 times 2 is 4, 2 plus 2 is 4, so it looks like we found a winning combination there. So I can write that as y plus 2 times y plus 2. There we go. Okay, y plus 2 times y plus 2. And again, that can be written as y plus 2 squared. Okay, so we've got x plus 1 times x plus 1, which is x plus 1 squared. We got y plus 2 times y plus 2, which is y plus 2 squared. Okay, so we've rewritten these terms. We've rewritten these two sets of terms. And then we've got this 121 over here that's going to be our radius squared. So if we finish writing this in center radius form, we can replace this with this down here. We can replace that with that and set it equal to the 121. So we got x plus 1 squared plus y plus 2 squared equals 121. And it asked us, what is the center of the circle? What is the center of the circle? Well, remember, if it's x minus h squared, and this is a positive number, that would be the same as x minus negative 1 squared. So my h term would actually be negative 1. H is negative 1. And then same as my positive 2 over here. That would be the same as y minus negative 2 squared. So my k term would be negative 2, because the two negatives are going to make this a positive. These two negatives make that a positive. Okay? So the center of my circle is going to be negative 1 comma negative 2. And then it asked me what the radius was. Okay? Well, I know that r squared is 121. And so in order to find the length of the radius, I just need to take the square root of both sides. So the length of my radius is going to be 11. Okay? So describe what you had to do in order to determine the center and the radius of the circle. We had to factor the x terms. We factored the x terms. Into a perfect square. And then we factored the y terms into a perfect square. Move that up a little bit. Okay, so that concludes this part. We'll move on to some more in just a second.